The Buddha once said that the mind is like the open sky, always vast, always clear, only hidden by passing clouds. Take a deep breath now, and as you exhale, imagine those clouds drifting away. Find your most comfortable way to listen, maybe lying still with eyes closed, or sitting in quiet reflection as the world softens around you. Tonight's stories will help you look beyond the clouds. They are not rules to follow, but invitations to return to your own clear sky of awareness. Before we begin, share where you are listening from, or what feeling lives in your heart right now. Maybe gratitude, maybe sorrow, maybe peace slowly forming, like light at dawn. Breathe once more, softly and completely. And now our story begins. There was a ship's navigator named Takeshi, who prided himself on never losing his way. He had sailed the coastal waters for 20 years, and in all that time, he had never once deviated from his intended course. He relied on a compass that had been given to him by his father, a master navigator, and this compass had never failed him. Takeshi's confidence in his navigational abilities was absolute. He knew exactly where he was at all times, could calculate his position by the stars, by the currents, by the wind. His captain trusted him completely, and other sailors spoke of Takeshi as someone who could navigate through the darkest night or the heaviest fog without ever being uncertain of his position. But one day, during what should have been a routine voyage along a familiar coast, something happened that shattered Takeshi's certainty. His compass began behaving strangely. The needle wavered, spun unpredictably, and then stopped working entirely. When Takeshi tried to get his bearings from the stars, heavy clouds covered the sky. The familiar landmarks he usually used were hidden by an unusual mist. For the first time in 20 years, Takeshi was lost. His initial reaction was panic. Without his compass, without his usual reference points, he felt completely disoriented. The ship was still moving, but he had no confidence in the direction they were heading. Every decision felt uncertain. Should they continue forward or turn back? Should they anchor and wait for the fog to clear, or try to push through? The captain came to find him. "Takeshi, what's our position?" "I don't know," Takeshi admitted, the words painful to say. "My compass is broken. I can't see the stars. The landmarks are hidden. Captain, I'm lost." The captain was quiet for a moment, then said something unexpected. "Good. Maybe now you'll actually see where we are." Takeshi was confused. "But I don't know where we are." "That's the problem. You've sailed these waters for 20 years, the captain said. You've relied on your instruments and your calculations. But have you ever really looked at the water itself? Have you ever paid attention to how it feels to sail through it, rather than just measuring your position within it?" The captain walked to the rail and looked out at the misty water. "When I started sailing, I had no instruments. I learned to read the water, the wind, the subtle signs that told me where I was and where I was going. You've always had your compass, so you never develop that sense. Maybe being lost is your opportunity to find a different way of knowing." Takeshi wanted to argue, but the truth was they had no choice. The compass was broken, and no amount of worry would fix it. He would have to navigate without his primary tool, without the certainty he had always relied on. So he began to pay attention in ways he never had before. He noticed the color of the water, which changed subtly with depth and seafloor composition. He felt the temperature of the wind on his face, which varied based on what land masses it had passed over. He watched the patterns of seabirds, which could indicate proximity to shore. He listened to the sound of the waves against the hull, which changed depending on bottom depth and current patterns. All of these signs had always been there. He just had never needed to notice them because his compass had told him everything he thought he needed to know. Now, forced to rely on more subtle indicators, he discovered a whole language of navigation he had been blind to. After several hours of this intense attention, Takeshi realized something. He had a sense of where they were, not the precise, measured certainty his compass had provided, but a felt sense, an intuitive knowing based on multiple subtle cues. It wasn't as comfortable as the false certainty his compass had given him, but it felt more real, more connected to the actual experience of being on the water. He gave the captain his best estimate of their position and the direction they should sail. "Are you sure?" the captain asked. "No," Takeshi admitted, "but I'm not completely lost either. I'm somewhere in between, navigating by feel rather than by certainty." They sailed based on Takeshi's intuitive navigation. Several hours later, when the fog finally cleared, they discovered they were exactly where Takeshi had estimated, perhaps even more accurately positioned than if he had been rigidly following his compass bearing. A Zen monk was traveling on the ship, making a pilgrimage to a distant temple. He had watched Takeshi's struggle with interest. That evening, he approached the navigator. "You've learned something valuable today," the monk said. "I've learned that I've been overly dependent on my tools," Takeshi replied. "That's a humbling lesson." "More than that," the monk said, "you've learned that there are different kinds of knowing. The compass gave you one kind, precise, measurable, certain, but it was a narrow knowing. It told you your position, but nothing about the water you were moving through, the wind you were sailing on, the life of the ocean around you." He looked out at the darkening water. When you lost that narrow certainty, you found a broader knowing. Less precise perhaps, but more connected, more alive, more responsive to what's actually happening rather than what should be happening according to your instruments. Takeshi thought about this. But isn't certainty important? Don't we need to know where we are? "There are different kinds of certainty," the monk replied. "The compass gave you the certainty of measurement. But measurement isn't the same as understanding. Today, without your compass, you develop the certainty of relationship. You know where you are not because an instrument tells you, but because you're in relationship with the water, the wind, the birds, all the subtle signs. This kind of knowing is less precise, but more intimate." Over the following days, even after Takeshi had replaced his broken compass with a new one, he found himself relying on it less. He had discovered that he could navigate by reading the signs around him, by paying attention to subtle cues, by trusting his felt sense of position and direction. The compass was useful for confirmation, but he no longer needed it as his primary tool. Other navigators noticed the change in Takeshi's approach. He seemed more relaxed, more connected to the sailing itself rather than anxiously checking his instruments every few minutes. Younger navigators would ask him for advice. The most important thing, Takeshi would tell them, is to not become so dependent on your tools that you lose your own capacity to sense and understand. Tools are useful, compasses are valuable, but if you rely on them exclusively, you become helpless when they fail. And more than that, you miss the actual experience of navigating, of being in relationship with the water you're moving through. He would tell them about the day his compass broke. I thought I was lost, and in one way I was. I had lost my usual certainty, my measured precision. But in another way, I found something I had been missing for 20 years. I found direct contact with the elements I was navigating through. I found a different kind of knowing that doesn't come from instruments but from attention and relationship. One young navigator asked, "But what if you're wrong? What if you follow your intuition and it leads you astray?" "That can happen," Takeshi admitted. "Just as following a compass can lead you astray if the compass is broken or if there's magnetic interference you don't know about. No method is perfect. But when you're navigating by attention and relationship, you notice when things don't feel right. You can adjust. When you're blindly following an instrument, you might sail confidently in the wrong direction without realizing it until it's too late." Years passed, and Takeshi's reputation changed. Instead of being known as the navigator who never lost his way, he became known as the navigator who could find his way even when lost. People understood there was a difference, and the second reputation was actually more valuable. A merchant who hired Takeshi for a difficult voyage once asked him, "What happens if we get lost?" Takeshi smiled. "We probably will get lost at some point. Weather changes, conditions shift, instruments fail. But being lost isn't the problem. Staying lost is the problem. And I've learned how to find my way even when the usual markers are gone. Being lost has become part of how I navigate, not something I try to prevent at all costs." The voyage was indeed difficult, with unexpected storms and compass problems. But Takeshi navigated through all of it, sometimes with certainty, sometimes with intuition, sometimes acknowledging that he wasn't sure but making his best estimate based on all available information. The ship arrived safely and the merchant was impressed. "You seem comfortable with uncertainty," the merchant observed. "I've learned to be," Takeshi replied. "Certainty is valuable when you can have it, but most of life involves some degree of uncertainty, some degree of not knowing exactly where you are or where you're going. The question is whether that uncertainty paralyzes you or whether you can navigate through it, using whatever signs are available, trusting your judgment, adjusting as you go." He looked out at the harbor where they had docked. "That day my compass broke was one of the most important days of my sailing life. It forced me to develop capacities I had been neglecting. It taught me that there are many ways of knowing, and the most precise isn't always the most useful. It showed me that being lost can be the beginning of finding a better way." The merchant nodded thoughtfully. "I think I've been sailing through my business life the same way you used to sail, following my instruments, my plans, my certainties. And when things don't go according to plan, when my compass breaks, I panic. Maybe I need to learn what you learned." "Maybe you do," Takeshi agreed. "Maybe we all do. Because life is going to break our compasses. It's going to take away our certainties and our familiar reference points. The question is whether we fall apart when that happens, or whether we discover we have other capacities, other ways of knowing, other methods of finding our way. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider what compasses have broken in your life. What certainties have you lost? What familiar reference points are no longer available? These losses can feel frightening, disorienting, like being lost at sea without navigation tools. But what if being lost isn't the disaster you think it is? What if it's an opportunity to develop new capacities, to discover ways of knowing and navigating that you've been neglecting? What if the broken compass is forcing you to pay attention in new ways, to trust senses you've been ignoring, to find your way through relationship and intuition rather than measurement and certainty? You don't need to know exactly where you are right now. You don't need perfect clarity about your direction. You're not lost in a catastrophic sense. You're just navigating without your usual instruments, which means you have to pay attention more closely, trust yourself more deeply, be more present to subtle signs and signals. Rest in the uncertainty tonight. Let yourself not know. Let yourself be somewhere between lost and found, navigating by feel, trusting that you have capacities beyond your usual tools. The compass will break sometimes. That's not failure. That's life inviting you to find a different way, a deeper way, a way that connects you more intimately with the journey itself. You know more than you think you know. You can find your way even when you can't measure your position. Being lost is just another form of navigation, one that requires more attention, more presence, more trust. And sometimes, being lost leads you to places you never would have discovered if you had stayed on your carefully plotted course. Sleep now in the uncertainty. You don't need a compass to rest. You don't need to know where you are to be okay right here. Let yourself drift without reference points, trusting that you'll find your way when morning comes, not through certainty, but through attention, not through instruments, but through relationship with whatever each moment brings. As we continue our journey through the wisdom of Zen Buddhism, let us turn to a tale about recognition and the true nature of worth. This is the next story. In a temple nestled among bamboo groves, there burned a single candle that had been lit from a flame kept burning for 300 years. Each night, the temple keeper would light a new candle from the old one before it burned down completely, ensuring the ancient flame continued without interruption. The current temple keeper was a young monk named Daichi who had inherited this duty from his teacher. Each evening, he would perform the ritual mechanically, barely paying attention. Light the new candle, let the old one burn out, and return to his other tasks. It seemed like such a simple, repetitive chore. One evening, as Daichi prepared to light the new candle from the old, his teacher appeared beside him. "Watch the flame," his teacher said quietly. Daichi watched. The candle had burned nearly to its base. The flame flickered, small and delicate, drawing on the last of the wax. "This flame has only moments left," his teacher continued. "Soon it will go out. Does knowing this change how you see it?" Daichi looked more carefully. The flame seemed somehow more beautiful now, more precious. Each flicker felt significant, knowing there were only a few left. "All things are like this candle," his teacher said. "Every moment is burning down. Every conversation is closer to its end. Every day of your life is drawing on a finite supply. But we forget this. We act as if we have unlimited time, unlimited candles, unlimited moments, so we waste them. We don't pay attention. We think there will always be another chance. He gestured to the dying flame. But this candle knows differently. It burns fully, completely, holding nothing back, because it has nothing to hold back for. It gives all its light right now, not saving some for later, because there is no later. This is its teaching. The old candle burned down to nothing. The flame vanished. Daiichi lit the new candle, transferring the ancient fire. "That flame you just saw will never exist again," his teacher said. "That particular dance of light and heat is gone forever. You witnessed its final moments. Did you honor them? Did you see them fully? Or were you already thinking about the next candle?" From that evening forward, Daiichi's relationship with the nightly ritual changed completely. He began to watch each candle burn with full attention. He noticed how each flame was unique, how it moved differently, how the light it cast created particular shadows that would never be exactly recreated. He began to see that everything in his life was like the candle. His conversations with the other monks were burning down toward their eventual end. His time in this temple was limited. His life itself was a candle burning, each day consuming some portion of a finite supply. This awareness didn't make him sad. Instead, it made him present. When he swept the courtyard, he swept with full attention, knowing that someday he would sweep it for the last time. When he ate, he tasted his food completely, knowing that each meal was unrepeatable. When he spoke with someone, he listened fully, knowing that every conversation was precious and finite. Other monks noticed the change in Daiichi. He seemed more alive somehow, more engaged, more appreciative of ordinary moments. "What happened to you?" a fellow monk asked. "You seem different." Daiichi smiled. "I learned to see endings," he said. "Not as sad things, but as teachers. When you know something will end, you treasure it. When you remember you're burning down like a candle, you stop saving your light for later and burn fully now." Years later, when Daiichi became the head teacher of the temple, he would bring students to witness the nightly lighting of the candles. He would make them watch the old candle's final moments, really watch, giving those last flickers of light their full attention. "This is how to live," he would tell them. "Not by pretending you'll last forever, but by remembering you won't. Not by fearing the end, but by letting the end teach you how precious the middle is. Burn fully. Give your light completely. Hold nothing back. Because like this candle, you have no guarantee of another moment beyond this one." Tonight, as you settle into rest, you might remember that this day has ended. It burned down moment by moment, and now it's gone. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. This moment, right now, is all you truly have. Does this awareness make you anxious? Or does it help you let go, knowing that clinging serves no purpose when everything is temporary? Does it make you sad? Or does it help you appreciate what's here while it's here? You are a candle burning, not slowly dying, but fully living, giving your light completely in each moment. And that light, however long it lasts, is enough. Rest now in the preciousness of this fleeting moment, this temporary life, this beautiful flame that burns brightly precisely because it doesn't last forever. In a monastery, there was a meditation hall with a heavy wooden door. that was always kept closed during practice sessions. The door had no lock, but everyone treated it as if it were locked, entering only at designated times and never leaving during meditation periods. A visiting monk named Gensho noticed this and asked why no one ever left during meditation, even though the door was clearly unlocked. "It wouldn't be proper," one monk explained. "During practice time, we stay in practice. Leaving would break the container, would disturb others, would show a lack of discipline." "But you could leave if you wanted to?" Gensho asked. "Technically, yes, but we don't." Gensho found this fascinating. These monks were living as if imprisoned during meditation sessions, but the prison existed only in their minds. The door was open. They could leave any time, yet they sat as if bound. He began to notice similar patterns throughout the monastery. People living within invisible constraints, following rules that had no enforcement mechanism, restricting themselves to prisons that had no walls. One day, during a particularly long meditation session, Gensho stood up, walked to the door, opened it, stepped outside into the sunlight, and then walked back in and sat down. The other monks were shocked by this violation of protocol. Afterward, the abbot called Gensho to his chambers. "Why did you leave during meditation?" "To see if I could," Gensho replied, "to test whether the constraint was real or imagined." "It was imagined. The door was never locked. I was never actually trapped. I was sitting there by choice, not by compulsion." "But we all know we could leave," the abbot said. "The point is that we choose not to." "Do you really know that?" Gensho asked. "Or have you assumed for so long that you shouldn't leave that you've forgotten you have a choice? There's a difference between staying by conscious choice and staying by habit or assumed constraint. One is freedom. The other is just a comfortable prison." This question disturbed many monks. They began to realize they had been treating many choices as if they were requirements. They had been living within restrictions that no one was actually enforcing. They had imprisoned themselves with beliefs about what they should or shouldn't do. The abbot considered Gensho's point carefully. "You're right," he admitted. "We've been treating the open door as if it were locked. We've been prisoners of our own assumptions. But what do we do with this awareness?" "First, acknowledge it," Gensho said. "See clearly that most of your constraints are chosen, not imposed. Then decide consciously, which constraints serve you? Which do you want to keep? And which are you maintaining out of habit or fear, not because they actually help you?" He gestured toward the meditation hall. "That door has always been open, but if you never test that, if you never actually check whether you could leave, then you're living as if imprisoned, even though you're free. True freedom begins with recognizing which prisons are real and which are imagined." Over the following weeks, the atmosphere in the monastery changed. Monks began questioning which rules actually served their practice and which they followed out of mere habit. They discovered they had internalized many restrictions that had no actual external enforcement. One monk realized he had been afraid to speak his honest opinions for years, not because speaking was forbidden, but because he had decided early on that it was safer to stay quiet. No one had actually silenced him. He had silenced himself. Another monk discovered he had been avoiding certain foods, not because of any monastic rule, but because he had once been told they were inappropriate for monks, and he had never questioned this. The restriction existed only in his belief. A third monk realized he had been limiting his meditation practice to certain times and places, not because practice was restricted to those times, but because he had created a mental rule about when and where meditation counted. "We've been living in prisons of our own making," one monk said during a group discussion. "The doors were open all along. We just never tried to walk through them." Gensho nodded. "Most people live this way. They believe they're trapped in circumstances, jobs, relationships, and patterns of behavior. They believe they have no choice. But often, if they examined closely, they'd discover the constraints are their own beliefs, not external reality." The door was never locked. The abbot asked, "But doesn't this lead to chaos? If everyone starts leaving meditation sessions whenever they want, ignoring the schedule, doing what they please, doesn't the structure fall apart?" "Possibly," Gensho agreed. "But structure maintained through unconscious compliance isn't real structure. It's just a habit pretending to be discipline. True structure comes from conscious choice. When people choose to stay, not because they believe they must, but because they genuinely want to, that's authentic practice. When they stay simply because they never questioned whether they could leave, that's just imprisonment with no walls." He looked around at the gathered monks. "I'm not suggesting you abandon all structure or discipline. I'm suggesting you own your choices. Recognize that you're staying because you choose to, not because you have to. Recognize that the door is open and you're free to leave, and then decide whether to stay or go based on authentic choice rather than assumed constraint." This teaching spread beyond the monastery. People in the nearby town heard about the open door and began examining their own lives. How many constraints were they living under that existed only in their minds? How many prisons had they created for themselves? A woman realized she had been staying in an unhappy marriage not because of any real obstacle to leaving, but because of stories she told herself about what leaving would mean. When she examined these stories, she found they were beliefs, not facts. The door had always been open. A man discovered he had been working at a job he hated for years, believing he had no choice, that his family responsibilities required it. When he looked honestly, he found there were other options he had never seriously considered because he had assumed from the beginning that he was trapped. An elderly person recognized that many of the limitations they experienced weren't from age or circumstance, but from beliefs about what old people could or couldn't do. The constraints were largely self-imposed. The teaching of the open door, people began to say, is that most prisons are mental. We're free more often than we realize. The question isn't whether we can leave, but whether we've been living as if we can't. Years later, the monastery still practiced meditation with a closed door during sessions, but now there was a different quality to it. Everyone knew the door was unlocked. Everyone knew they could leave any time they chose. They stayed not from obligation or assumed constraint, but from authentic choice. The practice deepened because people were choosing it freely, rather than submitting to it from habit or fear. Gensho's simple act of walking out and back in had freed an entire community from invisible prisons, not by tearing down structure, but by revealing that structure maintained by genuine choice is stronger than structure maintained by unconscious compliance. Tonight, as you rest, you might examine the doors in your own life. Which ones do you believe are locked, Which constraints do you accept as unchangeable? What prisons are you living in that exist only in your beliefs? The door has always been open. You've always been freer than you realized. The constraints that feel so solid are often just habits of thought, beliefs you've never questioned, stories you've told yourself for so long that you mistake them for truth. You're not as trapped as you think. You have more choices than you've acknowledged. The prison is mostly mental, and mental prisons can be walked out of the moment you realize the door was never actually locked. This doesn't mean every choice is easy or without consequences, but it means you're choosing even when you believe you have no choice. And recognizing that you're choosing is the beginning of real freedom. Rest now in the understanding that you're freer than you knew. The door is open. It's always been open. You can stay or go based on authentic choice, not on assumed necessity. This recognition doesn't require you to change anything external. It just requires you to see clearly. The constraints you live under are more permeable than you thought. You've had more freedom all along. You just haven't been exercising it. Sleep now as a free person, aware that tomorrow you can walk through any open door you choose, or stay where you are by genuine choice rather than imagined imprisonment. The freedom was always yours. Now you know it. As we move deeper into the quiet teachings of Zen, we come to a story about seeing clearly and understanding true value. Listen carefully to the next story. In a mountain monastery, there was a pond that perfectly reflected the sky above it. At night, when the moon was full, there would appear to be two moons, one in the sky and one in the water. A young monk named Daiki was troubled by this. Which is the real moon? He would ask. The one in the sky or the one in the water? The other monks would laugh. Obviously, the one in the sky is real. The one in the water is just a reflection. But Daiki wasn't satisfied with this answer. He would sit by the pond for hours, watching both moons. The moon in the water was just as bright, just as beautiful, just as present to his vision as the moon in the sky. In what sense was it less real? He asked his teacher, Master Hakuin, "If I can see the moon in the water, if it affects me just as much as the moon in the sky, how is it not real?" Hakuin smiled. "Touch the moon in the sky." "I can't. It's too far away." "Touch the moon in the water!" Daiki reached toward the pond, but as his hand approached the water, the moon's reflection rippled and fragmented. "I can't touch that one either." "Then in what way is one more real than the other?" Hakuin asked. "Both exist in your experience. Both affect you. Both are impossible to grasp. What makes you think reality and reflection are different things?" This question opened something in Daiki's understanding. He had been taught to distinguish between real and reflected, original and copy, substance and shadow. But his experience didn't support these neat distinctions. When he looked at the moon in the water, he really saw it. The experience of seeing it was real, even if what he was seeing was a reflection. When he felt moved by its beauty, the emotion was real, regardless of whether he was looking at the original or the reflection. His life, his experience, his feelings, all of these were happening in response to both moons equally. He began to wonder about other reflections in his life. When he thought about his deceased mother, was he experiencing his actual mother, or just a memory, a reflection of who she had been? Yet his love for her was real. His grief was real. The way she had shaped him was real. Did it matter that he could only access a reflection of her, not her actual presence? When he read teachings from ancient masters, was he experiencing their actual wisdom or just reflections of it, filtered through translation and time and his own interpretation? Yet the teachings affected him, changed him, helped him. The reflections had real power. When he practiced meditation and caught glimpses of what the teachings called his true nature, was he experiencing the actual thing or just reflections of it in his limited consciousness? Yet whatever he was experiencing, it was transforming his life. One evening, Daiki sat by the pond with Master Hakuin, watching the two moons. "Master," Daiki said, "I think I've been making a mistake. I've been trying to distinguish between the real and the reflected, but everything I experience is in some sense a reflection. I never touch reality directly. I only experience reflections of it in my consciousness, interpretations of it through my senses, and understanding. If I dismiss all reflections as unreal, I dismiss my entire life." Hakuin nodded. "This is a good understanding. The question isn't whether something is real or reflected. The question is whether you're aware that you're looking at a reflection, or whether you mistake the reflection for the only reality." He pointed at the moon in the water. "The danger isn't in seeing this moon. The danger is in thinking this is the only moon, in believing that your reflection of reality is reality itself. But if you know you're seeing a reflection, if you remain aware that there's something beyond what you can directly experience, then the reflection serves its purpose. It points you toward what it reflects." Over the following months, Daiki deepened this understanding. He learned to appreciate reflections without mistaking them for the whole truth. He could love his memory of his mother while knowing it was a reflection of her, not her actual presence. He could value teachings while knowing they were fingers pointing at truth, not truth itself. He could work with his experiences in meditation while knowing they were reflections of his true nature, not the full reality of it. He found this understanding incredibly freeing. He no longer needed to grasp the ungraspable or fully understand the incomprehensible. He could work with reflections, learn from them, be transformed by them, without needing them to be more than what they were. One day, a new student came to the monastery and asked Daiki the same question he had once asked. "Which moon is real? The one in the sky, or the one in the water?" Daiki smiled, remembering his own confusion. "Both are real," he replied. "One is the original, one is the reflection. But your experience of both is real. The light from the sky moon and the light from the water moon both enter your eyes. Both create responses in your consciousness. Both affect you. The only difference is that you can't directly touch either one, and one will remain even if you disturb the water." He looked at the two moons thoughtfully. Most of what we call our life is reflection. Reflection of the past in memory. Reflection of reality in consciousness. Reflection of truth in words and concepts. We live in a world of reflections. This isn't a problem unless we forget that they're reflections. Then we start fighting about whose reflection is most accurate, claiming our interpretation is the only real one, trying to grasp what can't be grasped. The new student asked, "So, how should we relate to reflections?" "Appreciate them," Daiki replied. "Learn from them. Be transformed by them, but hold them lightly. Know that they point to something beyond themselves. The moon in the water shows you where to look for the moon in the sky. Your experiences point you toward the truth beyond experience. Your understanding reflects reality, but isn't identical to reality. This awareness keeps you humble and keeps you seeking. Years later, when Daiki became a teacher, he would often bring students to the pond on full moon nights. He would have them look at both moons and ask, which is real? Some students would confidently say the sky moon was real and the water moon was just a reflection. Daiki would ask them, then why can you see them both equally well? Why does the water moon move you just as much as the sky moon? Other students, trying to be clever, would say both were real. Daiki would ask them, then why does one remain when you throw a stone in the water and the other doesn't? A few students would grow quiet, realizing the question itself was based on assumptions that didn't hold up under examination. These were the students Daiki knew were ready for deeper teaching. The question which is real assumes reality and reflection are opposites, he would tell these students. But actually, reflection is a form of reality. It's a real reflection, a real experience, a real perception. The problem isn't with reflection itself. The problem is when we mistake partial reflection for complete reality. When we think our limited experience encompasses the whole truth. When we cling to our interpretations as if they were the things themselves. He would point at the two moons. Your life is like looking at these moons. You're always experiencing reflections, never the thing itself. You reflect reality through your senses, your consciousness, your understanding. This reflection is a real experience. It shapes you, teaches you, transforms you. But it's not the whole story. Stay aware of this. Appreciate your reflections. Learn from them. But don't mistake them for the unreflected reality. One student asked, will we ever experience unreflected reality? Will we ever see beyond reflection? Daiki was quiet for a long moment, then said, perhaps in death, perhaps in enlightenment, perhaps never. I don't know, but I know this. The effort to see beyond reflection is itself valuable. The awareness that we're experiencing reflection keeps us humble, keeps us seeking, keeps us from absolutizing our limited perspectives. And sometimes in rare moments of clarity, the reflection becomes so perfect, so transparent, that the distinction between reflected and unreflected almost disappears. Those moments of clarity are themselves gifts of the reflective nature of consciousness. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider that your entire experience right now is a reflection. These words are reflections of ideas. Your understanding of them is a reflection of the words. Your sense of yourself is a reflection of something deeper. Your thoughts are reflections of the underlying mental activity you don't directly experience. Everything you know comes to you as a reflection. This doesn't make your experience less real. It makes it what it is, a real experience of reflected reality. You're seeing the moon in the water, and that seeing is genuine, even if what you're seeing is a reflection. Let this understanding help you hold everything a bit more lightly tonight. Your worries are reflections of possible futures. Your regrets are reflections of the past. Your sense of who you are is a reflection of something deeper and more mysterious than you can fully know. All of these reflections are real experiences, but they are not the whole truth. Rest in the understanding that you live in a world of reflections, and that's actually okay. You don't need to grasp the ungraspable or fully understand the mystery. You can appreciate the moon in the water without needing to hold the moon in the sky. You can live with reflections, learn from them, be moved by them, without mistaking them for everything that is. Both moons are beautiful. Both are real in their own way. And you, experiencing both, are having a real experience of something that transcends both. Rest in that paradox tonight. Rest in reflection. Rest in the mystery of experiencing what you can never fully grasp. It's enough. It's always been enough. The reflection of peace is peaceful. The reflection of rest is restful. You don't need the original when the reflection serves you so well. Sleep now, watching both moons, knowing both are real and neither is everything. That's the truth. That's enough. In a famous garden known for its roses, there appeared one season a strange mutation, a rosebush with no thorns. The stems were completely smooth, the flowers beautiful, but there was no defense, no sharp points to protect the plant from being damaged. The gardener, a woman named Ayame, was fascinated by this thornless rose. She thought it was perfect, an improvement over regular roses. Who wouldn't want roses without thorns? Roses that you could handle freely, cut without care, and arrange without risk of being pricked. She took cuttings from the thornless rose and propagated them, creating a whole section of the garden filled with these defenseless plants. She was so proud of this achievement that she invited people from across the region to see her thornless roses. But within a few months, problems appeared. Deer, which usually avoided the thorny roses, ate the thornless ones freely. Insects that were discouraged by thorns colonized these plants without resistance. Careless visitors would grab handfuls of flowers, taking far more than they would have if thorns had made them cautious. Within a year, the thornless roses were struggling. They required constant human protection, constant intervention, constant care in ways that regular roses never needed. What had seemed like an improvement turned out to be a vulnerability, a visiting botanist explained to Ayame. The thorns weren't a flaw in the design. They were part of the wisdom of the design. The rose needs protection because it's beautiful and therefore desirable. The thorns say, "Appreciate me from a respectful distance. If you want my beauty, approach carefully with awareness. Without that protection, the rose is too vulnerable to survive." Ayame was defensive at first, but thorns hurt people. Wouldn't it be better to have roses without danger? Danger isn't the only reason for boundaries, the botanist replied. The thorns create an appropriate relationship. They don't prevent you from enjoying the rose. They just require you to be careful, to pay attention, to approach with awareness rather than grabbing carelessly. The thornless rose invites carelessness, and carelessness destroys it. Ayame began to see the thornless roses differently. What she had thought was an improvement was actually a mutation that made the plant unable to protect itself, and that inability to protect itself meant the plant couldn't thrive. She noticed similar patterns in human behavior. People who had no boundaries, no ability to say no, no thorns to protect themselves, often ended up depleted and taken advantage of. Like her thornless roses, They needed constant intervention to survive because they couldn't protect themselves naturally. "The thorns aren't cruel," she told visitors who still admired the thornless roses. "They're wisdom. They're the rose's way of teaching appropriate relationships. Approach with care. Take only what's offered. Respect the boundary between appreciation and consumption. The thornless rose can't teach this lesson, so it gets consumed." She stopped propagating the thornless mutation and let those plants live out their natural lifespan while caring for them extra carefully. When they eventually died, she didn't replace them. Her garden returned to thorny roses that could protect themselves, that invited careful appreciation rather than careless grabbing. Tonight, you might consider your own thorns, the boundaries you felt guilty about, the protections you've thought were unfriendly or unkind, the ways you've learned to say no, to keep an appropriate distance, to require others to approach you with care rather than carelessness. These aren't flaws, they're wisdom. They're what allow you to survive and thrive. Don't apologize for your thorns. They're part of your design, protecting what's most beautiful about you from being carelessly destroyed. With each step on the Zen path, a new lesson unfolds. Now we turn to a story about recognition, of self, of others, and of what truly matters. Listen carefully to the next story. There was a poet named Ren who had written beautiful poems for many years. His words flowed easily, and people treasured his work. But one season, the words stopped coming. Ren would sit before blank paper, brush ready, ink prepared, and nothing would emerge. Day after day, week after week, the page remained empty. He tried everything. He read other poets' work, hoping for inspiration. He visited beautiful places, seeking images to capture. He forced himself to write, producing words that felt dead and hollow. Nothing worked. The emptiness persisted. Ren fell into despair. He believed he had lost his gift, that whatever spring of poetry had lived within him had dried up. He was no longer a poet, just someone sitting before blank pages, producing nothing. A Zen monk named Sengai heard of Ren's struggle and came to visit. He found the poet sitting in his study, surrounded by blank papers, looking defeated. "I can't write," Ren said. "The words are gone. I'm empty." Sengai picked up one of the blank pages, examining it carefully. "This paper looks full to me." Ren frowned. "It's completely blank. It's empty. That's the problem." "Is it?" Sengai held the page up to the light. "I see infinite possibilities on this page. I see every poem ever written and every poem yet to be written. I see your past work and your future work. This blank page contains everything. How can you call it empty?" "Those are just potential poems," Ren protested. "Not actual poems. Potential is nothing. I need actual words." Sengai set down the paper gently. "Tell me, before you write a poem, where does it exist?" "In my mind, I suppose. Or in my imagination." "And is that nothing? Is a poem that exists in imagination less real than a poem on paper? Or is it just a different form of the same thing?" Ren started to answer, then stopped. He wasn't sure. "The blank page is not the absence of poetry," Sengai continued. "It's poetry in its unmanifested form, the silence before the song, the stillness before the dance. You're calling it empty because you can't see it yet. But perhaps it's more full than any written page, because it contains all possibilities rather than one actuality." He moved to the window, looking out at Ren's garden. In winter, your garden looks dead, empty. But is it? Or is spring simply waiting, gathering itself, preparing? You wouldn't curse the winter garden for not being summer. You trust that the emptiness is part of the cycle. Why can't you trust that your blank pages are also part of the cycle? Over the following days, Ren sat with this teaching. Instead of fighting the blankness, trying to force it to become fullness, he simply sat with it. He looked at blank pages not as failures, but as potential. He experienced his internal emptiness not as loss, but as space. And slowly, something shifted. The emptiness began to feel different. Not empty, but full of possibility. Not lacking, but pregnant with what might emerge. He stopped trying to write and simply sat with a blank page, befriending it, accepting it. One morning, without force or effort, words came. Not many, just a few lines, but they felt true in a way his forced writing hadn't. They emerged from the emptiness rather than being imposed upon it. The blank page had given birth naturally, rather than being violated by his demand. Ren's poetry changed after this period. It had more space in it, more silence between words. Critics said it had deepened, become more profound. Ren knew it was because he had learned to value emptiness as much as fullness, to see the blank page not as an enemy, but as a teacher. When young poets came to him struggling with their own blank pages, their own dry periods, Ren would tell them, "Don't curse the emptiness. Don't fight the blank page." Emptiness is not the absence of poetry. It's poetry gathering itself. It's the fullness before it manifests. Trust it. Sit with it. Let it fill you in ways that words never could. The blank page is not nothing. It's everything waiting. Tonight, let yourself be blank. Let your mind be the empty page, not filled with thoughts and plans and worries. Don't see this emptiness as a lack. See it as fullness waiting, as possibility gathering, as the silence before the song. You don't need to fill every moment with content. The empty moments are just as important, just as full in their own way. Rest in emptiness. It's not nothing. It's everything you need, waiting to emerge when the time is right. In a coastal village where dangerous rocks lurked beneath the waves, there stood a lighthouse that had saved countless ships from destruction. The lighthouse keeper was a man named Tomo, who had tended the light faithfully for 20 years, never missing a night, never letting the beacon fail. Tomo took great pride in his work. Each evening as he lit the lamp, he would think about the ships that would see his light and know where the safe passage lay. He imagined grateful sailors steering clear of the rocks because of his vigilance. His purpose was clear, his contribution visible, his worth measured in ships that arrived safely rather than wrecking on the shore. But then came a period in Tomo's life when everything fell apart. His wife died after a long illness. His adult son, with whom he'd been close, moved to a distant city and rarely wrote. His closest friend in the village passed away suddenly. Within the span of 6 months, Tomo lost everyone who mattered most to him. He fell into a deep despair. He no longer felt the satisfaction he once had in his work. The lighthouse seemed meaningless, his life empty, his purpose hollow. He felt lost, as if he was stumbling through darkness with no light to guide him, no sense of direction, no hope that things would improve. Yet, despite his inner darkness, Tomo continued to light the lighthouse every night. It It was a habit, a duty, the automatic continuation of what he had always done. But there was no joy in it anymore, no sense of meaning. He lit the lamp because that's what lighthouse keepers do, not because he felt it mattered. He would stand in the lamp room at night, watching the light sweep across the dark water, and think, I'm supposed to be the one providing light, but I'm drowning in darkness. I'm supposed to guide others to safety, but I'm completely lost in myself. What right do I have to stand here pretending to know the way when I can't find my own path? One stormy night, as Tomo stood in the lamp room feeling particularly hopeless, there was a knock at the lighthouse door. He descended to find a sailor, soaking wet, nearly hypothermic, who had been thrown from his ship when a wave swept over the deck. I saw your light, the sailor gasped as Tomo pulled him inside. I was in the water, being pulled toward the rocks. I thought I was going to die. Then I saw your light, and I swam toward it. Your light saved my life. Tomoe brought the man warm clothes, hot tea, and blankets. As the sailor recovered by the fire, he kept repeating his gratitude. If your light hadn't been there, I would have been smashed against the rocks. I couldn't see anything else, but I could see your light. It showed me which way to swim. After the sailor left the next morning, rescued by his ship, which had returned looking for him, Tomo sat for a long time thinking about what had happened. He had been so focused on his own inner darkness that he had forgotten what his light actually did. It didn't require him to feel enlightened. It didn't need him to be free of darkness himself. It just needed to shine. The sailor didn't care that the lighthouse keeper was lost and grieving. The sailor didn't need Tomo to have all the answers or to be living a perfect life. The sailor just needed the light to be there, marking the safe passage, showing where the dangers were. A Zen monk who lived at the village had heard about the rescued sailor. He came to visit Tomo at the lighthouse. I've noticed you've been struggling, the monk said gently. Since your losses, I see the darkness in you. Tomo nodded, too tired to pretend otherwise. I light this beacon every night, but I feel like a fraud. How can I guide others when I'm lost myself? How can I provide light when I'm full of darkness? The monk looked up at the lamp tower. Does the lighthouse need to understand navigation to be useful? Does it need to have sailed all the seas to show where the rocks are? Does it need to feel happy and fulfilled to save lives? No, Tomo admitted. It just needs to shine. Exactly, the monk said. You think your inner darkness disqualifies you from helping others, but actually, your willingness to keep the light burning despite your darkness makes your service even more valuable. You're not helping others because you have everything figured out. You're helping them because you do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. He touched Tomo's shoulder. Many people believe they can't help others until they're completely healed themselves. Until they've solved all their problems, found all their answers, achieved enlightenment or happiness or wholeness. But if everyone waited until they were completely well before helping others, no one would ever help anyone. We're all broken in some way. We're all stumbling in the darkness of one kind or another, but we can still hold lights for each other. Tomo felt something shift inside him. You're saying I can be lost and still guide others. You already are, the monk replied. You've been doing it every night. Your grief, your despair, your sense of being lost, none of that prevented the light from shining. None of that stopped you from doing what needed to be done. You think you're a fraud because you're suffering while helping others. But actually, you're demonstrating something important. Service doesn't require personal perfection. It requires showing up and doing what needs to be done. Over the following weeks, Tomo began to see his work differently. He was still grieving. He still felt lost much of the time. The darkness inside him hadn't disappeared. But he understood now that his inner state didn't invalidate his outer contribution. Ships still needed guidance. The light still saved lives. His pain didn't make the light less bright. He thought about all the people who probably felt as he did, broken, lost, inadequate, questioning their right to help others when they themselves were struggling. How many people stopped offering their gifts because they felt they weren't whole enough, healed enough, enlightened enough? A young woman from the village came to him one day troubled. She was training to be a healer, but felt overwhelmed by her own anxieties and doubts. "How can I help heal others when I'm so broken myself?" she asked. Tomo took her up to the lamp room and showed her the light. This lighthouse doesn't need to be whole to be useful. It just needs to do its job. You don't need to have conquered all your fears and healed all your wounds to help others. You just need to offer what you can offer. Your brokenness doesn't disqualify you from service. Sometimes it actually makes you better at it because you understand suffering from the inside. He told her about the sailor he had saved while feeling completely lost. The sailor didn't need me to be happy. He needed me to keep the light on. The people you help won't need you to be perfect. They'll need you to offer your skills, your compassion, your presence, whatever you're capable of giving. And you can give those things even while you're struggling. Word spread about the lighthouse keeper's teaching. People who had been holding back from helping others because of their own problems began to reconsider. The teacher who was battling depression realized she could still teach well, that her students didn't need her to be joyful, just knowledgeable and present. The counselor struggling with his own failed marriage recognized he could still help other couples, that his challenges didn't erase his insights. The mentor, dealing with doubt about his own life choices, saw that he could still guide younger people. That uncertainty about his own path didn't prevent him from illuminating options for others. Tomoe's grief gradually softened over time. Years passed, and while he never stopped missing his wife and feeling the absence of his son, the acute pain dulled into a quieter sadness. The darkness inside him became less consuming. But he never forgot the lesson of that period, that he had kept the light burning through his darkest time, that ships had been saved even while he felt lost, that his inner darkness hadn't stopped the outward light. One evening, many years later, an old sailor came to the lighthouse. "Do you remember me?" the sailor asked. "You saved my life 20 years ago. I was thrown overboard in a storm. I saw your light and swam to it." Tomoe did remember. That was the night I needed most to know that what I was doing mattered. "Well, it mattered," the sailor said. "I went on to have a family. 3 children, 7 grandchildren now. All of them exist because you kept that light burning. And you know what I learned that night? I learned that when you're drowning in darkness, you don't need someone who has all the answers. You just need someone who's holding a light, even if they're struggling to hold it, even if they're not sure why they're bothering. You just need the light. It doesn't matter if the keeper is lost. It matters that the light is there. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider what lights you've been withholding because you feel too broken to offer them. What help have you refused to give because you don't feel qualified, whole, or enlightened enough? What guidance have you withheld because you yourself feel lost? You don't need to have everything figured out to help someone else. You don't need to be healed completely to offer healing. You don't need to be free of darkness to hold light for others. The lighthouse keeper's inner darkness didn't stop ships from being saved. Your inner struggles don't invalidate the contribution you can make. Keep your light burning, even in your dark nights. Not because you're perfect, but because someone out there is swimming in darkness toward whatever light they can find. Your light might be the one that saves them. And it doesn't matter that you feel lost. It only matters that you're still showing up, still doing what you can do, still offering what you can offer. Rest now in the understanding that you can be broken and still be useful, lost and still guide others, full of darkness and still provides light. The lighthouse doesn't need to understand the journey to mark the safe passage. It just needs to keep shining. So do you. Your inner darkness doesn't disqualify you from helping others. Sometimes it's what qualifies you most, because you understand what it's like to need a light in the darkness. Sleep now, lighthouse keeper, knowing that even in your darkest nights, your light has been saving lives. It always has been. It always will be. As our exploration of Zen Buddhism deepens, let us listen to a story that reveals how true worth is often overlooked. Here starts the next story. A young man named Tetsu came to study with a famous Zen master named Bankei. Tetsu had read many books about Buddhism and philosophy. He arrived full of questions, eager to test his understanding against the master's wisdom. On his first day, Bankei asked Tetsu, "What do you know about Zen?" Tetsu was ready for this question. He began to explain the concepts he had learned: emptiness, Buddha nature, the middle way, non-duality. He spoke for 20 minutes, demonstrating his knowledge, occasionally glancing at Bankei to see if the master was impressed. When Tetsu finally finished, Bankei said simply, "What else?" Tetsu was confused. "What do you mean, what else?" "You've told me what you know about Zen. Now tell me what you don't know." "Well," Tetsu hesitated. This wasn't a question he had prepared for. "I suppose there are advanced teachings I haven't encountered yet, and practical applications I'm still learning." "That's not what I asked," Bankei said. "I asked what you don't know. Not what you haven't learned yet, but what you genuinely don't know and recognize as unknowable." Tetsu was silent. He had spent years accumulating knowledge, thinking that was the path to wisdom. The idea of deliberately acknowledging what he didn't know felt like admitting defeat. "Come back tomorrow," Bankei said, "with a list of everything you don't know." Tetsu spent all evening trying to complete this impossible assignment. Every time he wrote "I don't know X," he would realize that he did know something about X, or could figure it out, or could look it up. By midnight, his page was blank. He couldn't genuinely claim not to know anything because he could always imagine ways to know it. The next morning, he returned to Bankei with empty hands. "I couldn't make the list," Why not? Because I kept finding that I could know things, or learn things, or figure things out. I couldn't find anything I genuinely don't know. Bankei smiled. Then you've learned nothing from your books. Because the wisest people are the ones who understand the vastness of what they don't know. Knowledge is a small island in an ocean of mystery. The more you know, the more coastline you have touching that ocean, the more you realize how much is unknown. But you've built your island and convinced yourself it's the whole world. He gestured for Tetsu to sit. Tell me something simple. Why does the sun rise each morning? Because of the Earth's rotation, Tetsu answered confidently. And why does the Earth rotate? Because of physics, angular momentum from the solar system's formation. And why does the universe have these laws of physics rather than different ones? Tetsu opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. You see? Bankei said gently. 3 questions deep, and we've reached mystery. You can describe what happens, but you can't explain why it happens, why existence is this way, rather than some other way. Behind every answer is a deeper question, and eventually, we reach the ground of not knowing. He poured tea for both of them. The problem with collecting knowledge is that it makes you think you understand. You learn the names of things, the explanations, the theories, and you mistake the map for the territory. You think because you can explain how a flower grows, you understand the flower, but you don't. The mystery of existence, of consciousness, of why there's something rather than nothing, this remains completely unknown no matter how much you learn. Tetsu felt something loosening in his chest. So all my study was worthless? Not worthless, Bankei replied, but incomplete. Knowledge without the humility of not knowing is just cleverness. It makes you think you've arrived when you've barely begun the journey. The real beginning of wisdom is when you stop pretending to know and start genuinely inquiring into what you don't know and can't know. Over the following months, Tetsu's approach to learning changed completely. Instead of trying to know everything, he practiced living with mystery. Instead of collecting answers, he sat with questions. Instead of explaining away wonder, he let himself be filled with it. He discovered that not knowing wasn't weakness or ignorance. It was openness. It was the beginner's mind that could see things freshly. It was the humility that made real learning possible. Years later, when Tetsu had students of his own, they would sometimes come to him full of questions, wanting answers to everything. And Tetsu would smile and ask, "What do you really want to know?" "Everything," they would say. And Tetsu would reply, "Then start by knowing that you know nothing. That the mystery is vast and you're a brief candle trying to illuminate infinity. Let that not knowing be your teacher. It's more honest than any answer I could give you. Tonight, let yourself not know. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to understand your life completely. You don't have to know why things happen or what it all means. You can rest in mystery, in not knowing, in the simple presence of being alive, without needing to explain it. The wisest rest comes not from having all the answers, but from being comfortable with questions that have no answers. Let yourself not know. That's where wisdom begins. In a town known for its elaborate storytelling tradition, there arrived a performer who couldn't speak. Her name was Yuki, and she had lost her voice to an illness years before. Despite this, she claimed to be a storyteller, which puzzled the townspeople. How could someone without a voice tell stories? The town's master storyteller, a man named Jiro, who was famous for his eloquent speech and powerful voice, was particularly skeptical. "Storytelling is about words," he said dismissively. "Without words, you have nothing. You're not a storyteller, you're just a mime." But the town's curiosity was strong enough that they allowed Yuki to perform one evening in the town square. Jiro attended, expecting to prove his point about the necessity of words. Yuki stepped onto the platform, wearing simple clothes, carrying no props. She stood in silence for a long moment, then began to move. Her movements were subtle at first, just small shifts in posture, gentle expressions crossing her face. But gradually, through gesture, expression, and presence, a story began to emerge. Without a single word, she conveyed a tale of loss and discovery. Her body became a person grieving, and everyone watching felt the grief. Her face showed the journey from despair to hope, and the audience traveled that journey with her. Her hands painted images in the air that everyone could see, even though nothing visible was there. The story lasted perhaps 20 minutes. When it ended, Yuki simply bowed and left the platform. The audience sat in stunned silence, many with tears running down their faces. Jiro, the master storyteller, was shaken. He had told thousands of stories in his career, using all his skill with words, all his vocal techniques. But he had never moved an audience the way Yuki just had, without saying anything at all. He approached her later. "I don't understand. How did you do that? Without words, how did you communicate so much?" Yuki took out a small board she used for writing and wrote, "Words point to truth, but words are not truth itself. I cannot use words, so I must speak the truth directly. My presence must communicate what my voice cannot." Jiro read this and sat down heavily. "I've spent my whole life mastering words, and you just showed me that words might be the least important part of storytelling." Yuki wrote again, "Words are useful, but presence is essential. You can have perfect words with no presence, and people feel nothing. You can have no words but complete presence, and people feel everything. I didn't choose to lose my voice, but losing it taught me that what I thought was essential actually wasn't." Over the following days, Jiro spent time with Yuki, learning her way of storytelling. She showed him how much could be communicated through posture, through the quality of attention, through authentic presence. She demonstrated that silence could say more than speech, that stillness could convey more than elaborate gestures. "When you use words," she wrote, "you risk people hearing the words but missing the truth behind them. They get caught in analyzing what you said, agreeing or disagreeing with your choice of words. But when you communicate through presence, there are no words to argue with. People feel the truth directly." Jiro began incorporating this into his own storytelling. He still used words, but he paid more attention to presence, to silence, to the communication that happened beyond language. His storytelling deepened, became more powerful. People said something had changed, though they couldn't quite name what. One day, a young person who couldn't speak came to the town. devastated by the belief that they could never communicate effectively. Jiro brought them to meet Yuki. "You think your inability to speak is a limitation," he told the young person, "but this woman has shown me it's also an opportunity. An opportunity to develop forms of communication that go deeper than words, to learn to be so present that your mere being conveys what others need elaborate sentences to express." Yuki performed for the young person and afterward wrote, "I grieved my lost voice for years. I thought I had lost the essential tool for human connection, but I was wrong. Presence is the essential tool. Voice is just one way among many to express presence. You haven't lost the ability to communicate. You've been allowed to master a form of communication that speaking people often neglect. Tonight, let yourself communicate without words. Let your presence speak. In the silence of rest, convey to yourself and to the universe whatever needs to be said, without saying anything at all. Words are useful, but they're not essential. Presence is essential, and your presence right now, silent and still, communicates everything that needs to be communicated. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to explain or describe or articulate. Just be here, fully present, and let that presence be the story that's being told tonight. Continuing along the path of Zen insight, we pause now to hear a teaching about perception and hidden value. Listen carefully to the next story. There was a painter named Hiro who specialized in landscapes, particularly sunsets. He would travel to scenic locations, set up his easel, and capture the magnificent colors of the evening sky. His paintings were admired and purchased by wealthy collectors throughout the region, but Hiro harbored a secret anxiety. He worried that beauty only existed when someone was there to witness it. If a sunset occurred and no one saw it, was it still beautiful? If a mountain stood in perfect light, but no human eye appreciated it, did that beauty mean anything? This philosophical worry grew into an obsession. Hiro began to feel that his purpose as an artist was essential, that without him and others like him to witness and record beauty, that beauty was somehow wasted, meaningless, lost. He expressed this concern to a Zen monk named Daigu, who lived near one of Hiro's favorite painting locations. "If I didn't come here to paint these sunsets, they would just happen and disappear with no one to appreciate them. Doesn't that seem like a waste?" Daigu looked at Hiro with gentle amusement. "Let me ask you something. Before humans existed, before there were any conscious beings to witness them, did sunsets occur?" "Yes, I suppose so." "And were they beautiful?" "How could they be beautiful if there was no one to see them?" "Ah," Daigu said. "So you believe beauty is created by the observer rather than existing in the observed?" This question troubled Hiro. He had always thought beauty was a quality inherent in things, but maybe he was wrong. Maybe beauty was just a human interpretation, a meaning we project onto neutral phenomena. Daigu continued, "Tonight, stay at my temple. In the morning, before dawn, I'll show you something." That night, Hiro could barely sleep, wondering what the monk would show him. Before sunrise, Daigu woke him and led him to a secluded valley far from any human habitation. "We're going to leave now," Daigu said, "and we're not going to look back. This evening, the sunset will occur here, with no human to witness it." According to your theory, that sunset will not be beautiful because there's no one to appreciate it. But how will we know? Hiro asked. Exactly, Daigu smiled. How will we know? And does not knowing change anything about what actually happens? They left the valley and returned to the temple. All day, Hiro thought about the sunset occurring in that empty valley. The sky is going through its evening transformation with no human eye to see it. Colors blooming and fading with no one to call them beautiful. That evening, sitting with Daigu as the sun set over the temple, Hiro said, "Right now, in that valley, the sunset is happening. And it's the same sky, the same light, the same colors as here. The only difference is, we're not there to see it." "And?" Daigu prompted. "And I realize my presence doesn't create the beauty. It just allows me to participate in it. The sunset doesn't need me to witness it to be what it is. My witnessing is a gift I receive, not a gift I give to the sunset." Daigu nodded. The mountains were beautiful before humans arrived and will be beautiful after humans are gone. The sunset performs its daily miracle whether anyone watches or not. Beauty is not dependent on observers. It exists. Our observation of it is our privilege, not our creation or our responsibility. This understanding transformed Hiro's relationship with his art. He had been painting with a sense of urgent mission, as if he needed to capture and preserve beauty before it was lost to obscurity. Now, he painted with gratitude, recognizing that he was participating in beauty, not rescuing it. His paintings changed. They became less about controlling and capturing, and more about celebrating and sharing. Critics said his later work had a quality of joy that his earlier, technically superior work had lacked. One student asked Hiro, "If beauty exists without observers, why paint at all? Why bother witnessing it?" "Because witnessing is a joy," Hiro replied, "not a duty. I don't paint because the sunset needs me. I paint because I need the sunset. Being present to beauty enriches me. Sharing that experience with others through my paintings is a gift I offer. But the beauty itself doesn't depend on my offering. It simply is." He told the student about the sunset in the empty valley. Somewhere right now, a magnificent sunset is occurring that no human will ever see. No photograph will capture it. No painting will record it. It will happen and end and be gone forever from human knowledge. And that's perfect. That sunset doesn't exist for us. It exists because the earth turns and light bends and atmosphere scatters color. We're fortunate when we get to witness it, but our witnessing isn't required. This lesson extended beyond sunsets to everything in Hiro's life. He realized he'd been placing himself at the center of existence, as if things needed him to matter. But actually, everything had its own existence, its own worth, independent of his awareness or appreciation. The tree in his garden was a tree whether he noticed it or not. The bird singing in the morning was completing its nature whether he heard it or not. The stars were shining whether he looked up at them or not. His presence as an observer was optional, not essential. Everything existed quite fully without him. "This could feel depressing," he told Daigu later. "Realizing that I'm not essential, that everything would continue without me." "Or it could feel liberating," Daigu replied. "You don't have to carry the burden of making things matter. They already matter. Your role is simply to participate, to witness, to celebrate when you're fortunate enough to be present. This is a much lighter burden than thinking you must observe everything to validate its existence. Years later, when Hero was old and knew he was dying, a young painter came to him, worried. "When I die, who will paint these mountains? Who will witness these sunsets? Will all this beauty be wasted?" Hero smiled, remembering his own younger anxieties. "The beauty will be what it has always been, complete and independent of observers. Other people will witness it. And even if no people witnessed it, it would still be itself, still be beautiful in its own right. You're not the author of beauty. You're just a fortunate participant in it. Paint while you can, witness what you're able to, and rest easy knowing that beauty doesn't depend on you to exist." Tonight, as you rest, you might find relief in this teaching. The world doesn't need you to be constantly observing, appreciating, and validating it for it to have worth. Your life has value. Your presence matters, but not because everything depends on you. Rather, because you get to participate in existence, to witness beauty, to experience being alive. This moment, right now, is happening whether you're paying attention or not. The universe is unfolding whether you're conscious of it or not. You can rest completely, releasing all concern that you need to be witnessing and validating and appreciating every moment. Some moments will happen without you. Some beauty will bloom and fade unseen. And that's perfect. That's how it should be. Rest in the understanding that you're not the center of existence, but a participant in it, a grateful guest, not a required audience. Let the world exist without your constant attention. Let beauty be beautiful, whether you're watching or not. This is freedom. This is peace. This is the deep rest of knowing you can stop, can close your eyes, can let go completely, and everything will continue being exactly what it is. In a village where everyone prided themselves on their sophistication and education, there lived a simple man named Saburo who worked as a night watchman. His job was to walk through the streets after dark, making sure all was well, that no fires had started, that no trouble was brewing. Saburo had little education. He couldn't read the classical texts that the village scholars discussed. He didn't understand philosophy or poetry. The educated people of the village looked down on him somewhat, considering him simple, perhaps even slow-witted. But Saburo had one practice that brought him deep joy. On his nightly rounds, whenever he found a puddle that reflected the moon, he would stop and gaze at it. He would crouch down beside these puddles and smile at the perfect circle of light floating in the water, no matter how small or muddy the puddle was. One night, a scholar named Masato was walking home late from a dinner party where there had been much wine and intellectual discussion. He came upon Saburo crouching beside a small puddle, staring into it with a look of wonder. "Saburo!" Masato called out, his words slightly slurred. "What are you doing down there in the mud?" "Looking at the moon," Saburo replied, not taking his eyes from the puddle. Masato laughed. "That's not the moon, you fool. That's just a reflection. The real moon is up there." He pointed to the sky, where the full moon hung bright and distant. "I know," Saburo said simply, "but I can't touch the real moon. It's too far away. This moon in the puddle, I can see it up close. I can watch it shimmer when the wind blows. I can see clouds pass across it. It's right here with me. But it's not real, Masato insisted. It's just an image, a copy. Why waste time looking at a reflection when you could look at the actual moon? Saburo finally looked up at Masato. I look at both. The moon in the sky is beautiful, but the moon in the puddle is beautiful too. And this one, I can be close to. This one shares the street with me. Why should I ignore it just because it's a reflection? Masato shook his head and walked away, chuckling at the simple watchman's foolishness. But a traveling Zen monk had overheard this exchange. He approached Saburo and sat down beside the puddle. "May I look at the moon with you?" the monk asked. Saburo smiled and moved over to make room. Together, they gazed at the reflection in the puddle. After a while, the monk said, "That scholar thinks you're simple. He thinks you don't understand the difference between the real moon and its reflection." "I understand the difference," Saburo said quietly. "I just don't think it matters as much as he does." "Tell me what you mean," the monk said. Saburo thought for a moment, then spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "The scholar says the moon in the puddle isn't real. But I'm seeing it right now. It's making light in the water. It's changing as I watch it. How is that not real? Maybe it's not the same as the moon in the sky, but it's not nothing. It's something. And that something brings me joy." The monk nodded, saying nothing, encouraging Saburo to continue. People like Masato think some experiences are real and important, and other experiences are just reflections, just copies, not worth their time. But I don't see it that way. When I see beauty in a puddle, I'm really seeing it. When I feel peace looking at the moon's reflection, I'm really feeling it. Just because it's a reflection doesn't make my experience less real. The monk smiled broadly. You understand something that the scholar doesn't. He's so concerned with distinguishing between original and copy, between real and reflected, that he misses the truth. All experience is real experience, even if it's experience of a reflection. The joy you feel looking at this puddle moon is not reflected. It's actual joy. They sat together in silence for a while longer. Then the monk said, "There's a teaching in Zen about the moon and its reflection. It says that trying to grasp the absolute truth is like trying to grab the moon in the sky. But seeing truth in everyday life is like seeing the moon reflected in water. We can't touch the infinite directly, but we experience it through its reflections in ordinary moments. You've understood this naturally, without studying." Saburo looked puzzled. "I don't know about truth or the infinite. I just like looking at the moon in puddles." "That's exactly what I mean," the monk laughed. "The scholar knows many teachings, but understands little. You know no teachings, but understand much." Word of this conversation spread through the village. Some people thought it was just another example of Saburo's simplicity being mistaken for wisdom. But others began to think differently about reflections. A woman who had been dismissing her own life as less important than the lives of famous people she read about, realized that her experience of love, loss, joy, and sorrow was not a lesser version of human experience. It was human experience itself. The fact that no one wrote books about her life didn't make her life less real. A man who had been ashamed of his humble work, comparing it constantly to the prestigious careers of others, recognized that his satisfaction in work well done was not a reflected satisfaction. It was real satisfaction, no less valuable for coming from ordinary labor than satisfaction from celebrated achievement. A child who loved to draw but was told her art was just copying the real world, understood suddenly that her experience of creating was real creating, even if she was working from life rather than pure imagination. The monk stayed in the village for several weeks, and people noticed that he would often walk with Saburo on his night rounds. They would stop at puddles together, looking at reflections of the moon, stars, and lantern light. The educated people found this baffling. Why would a learned monk waste time with a simple watchman looking at puddles? But others began to join them. At first, just one or two, then more. They would walk the night streets, stopping at puddles, looking at reflected light, experiencing the strange beauty of seeing the distant brought near, the vast captured in the small. One night, Masato the scholar, humbled by wine, or perhaps by something else, joined the group. He crouched beside a puddle and looked at the moon's reflection. At first, all he could think was, "This isn't the real moon." But gradually, as he watched, something shifted. He stopped comparing the reflection to the original and simply experienced what was before him. Light in water, movement and shimmer, beauty is accessible and close. He found, to his surprise, that he was moved, not by the moon itself, which he had seen countless times, but by this moment of looking at light in a puddle, surrounded by others who were also looking, all of them sharing this simple, real experience. "I understand now," he said quietly to Saburo. "I've been so busy distinguishing between real and reflected that I forgot that all of it is real. The moon in the sky is real. The moon in the puddle is real. And my experience of looking at either one is real. Nothing is lesser just because it's a reflection." Saburo smiled. "The puddle moon is closer. I like that about it." Years later, when travelers asked what was special about this village, people would tell them about the night walks, the puddle gazing, the practice of seeing reflections not as inferior copies, but as real encounters with beauty brought near. And they would tell them about Saburo, the watchman who taught a village full of educated people, that reflection is not the opposite of reality. Reflection is reality in another form. Experience is experience, whether of original or copy, source or reflection. The joy is real. The beauty is real. The moment is real. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider what experiences you've been dismissing as just reflections. What joys have you minimized because they weren't the real thing? What beauty have you ignored because it came to you secondhand, through a screen, through a retelling, through some medium other than direct contact? All experience is real experience. The peace you feel listening to these words is not reflected peace, it's actual peace. The rest you're settling into is not a copy of rest, it's real rest. You don't have to touch the moon directly to experience moonlight. You don't have to live someone else's life to experience real life. Your experience right now, reflection or not, is completely real. Rest in the truth that this moment, this breath, this experience of being here is not practice for the real thing. It is the real thing. Nothing is lacking. Nothing needs to be more direct or more authentic. This is it. In this reflection, you call your life your actual life. These reflections you call your experiences are your actual experiences, and they are enough, more than enough. They are real. As we drift deeper into the still waters of Zen, a quiet teaching begins to rise, one that speaks of clarity and of value not always seen. Listen gently now. The next story begins. In a city famous for its artists, there was a renowned sculptor named Kaori who had created magnificent works for temples, palaces, and public squares throughout the land. She was known for her perfectionism, her unwillingness to declare any work complete until every detail was exactly right. At age 60, Kaori received a commission that she knew would be her masterpiece, a memorial sculpture for the city's founder. She had complete artistic freedom and unlimited time. This would be her legacy, the work by which all her other work would be judged. She began with intense focus, creating preliminary sketches, building models, and selecting the perfect stone. The first year was spent in planning. The second year is spent roughing out the basic form. By the third year, the sculpture was recognizably taking shape as a figure of dignity and strength, capturing something essential about leadership and vision. But as the sculpture neared completion, something strange happened. Kaori couldn't finish it. Every time she thought she was done, she would see another adjustment to make, another detail to refine, another element that wasn't quite right. The nose could be more precise, the hands could be more expressive, the drapery could flow more naturally. Years passed. The sculpture stood in her studio, nearly complete, but never quite complete enough. City officials would visit, would ask when they might see the finished work, and Kaori would assure them it was almost ready, just a few more refinements needed. 10 years after beginning the project, Kaori was still working on the same sculpture. It had gone through countless iterations. Areas she had refined years earlier, she would redo, claiming her skills had improved, and she could do better now. The sculpture had become an obsession, a project that consumed her life but never reached completion. A young sculptor named Isamu, who admired Kaori's earlier work, came to apprentice with her. He expected to learn from watching a master complete her masterpiece. Instead, he found an old woman trapped in endless refinement, unable to stop working on a sculpture that had been nearly done for years. "Why don't you declare it finished?" Isamu finally asked, after watching Kaori rework the same hand for the third time since he arrived. "Because it's not perfect yet," Kaori replied. "I can see the ideal form in my mind. This stone version still falls short. I need to keep working until the stone matches the vision." "But will it ever match?" Isamu asked gently. "Will the real sculpture ever match the perfect one in your imagination?" Kaori had no answer. She had never asked herself this question. She had always assumed that with enough work, enough refinement, enough time, she could make the physical sculpture match her mental ideal. A Zen teacher named Etsuko, who had known Kaori for decades, visited the studio. She looked at the nearly complete sculpture with a sad expression. "You're destroying it," Etsuko said. "I'm perfecting it," Kaori protested. "No, you're overworking it. The sculpture lost its life years ago when you couldn't stop refining it. Now it's becoming tight, over-controlled, anxious. I can see your perfectionism in every surface. The early spontaneity is gone, replaced by compulsive detail. She touched the sculpture gently. Completion doesn't mean achieving perfection. It means recognizing when continuing diminishes rather than improves. This sculpture was probably finished 5 years ago, but you couldn't see it because you were comparing it to an impossible ideal rather than accepting it as the real thing it actually was. Kaori wanted to argue, but she knew Etsuko was right. She looked at her sculpture with honest eyes for the first time in years. It was beautiful in parts, overworked in others. The areas she had refined most recently were actually worse than earlier versions. Too controlled, too fussy, too perfect. The sculpture had lost its breath somewhere along the way. "How do I know when something is done?" Kaori asked quietly. "How do I distinguish between stopping because it's complete and stopping because I've given up?" "You feel it," Etsuko replied. "True completion has a quality of rightness, even if the work isn't perfect. Giving up has a quality of defeat. But what you're doing now is neither completion nor giving up. It's compulsive continuation, working past the point where work helps. That's different from both completion and abandonment." She looked at Kaori directly. The sculpture should have been installed in the city square years ago, where people would appreciate it. Instead, it's trapped in your studio, being endlessly refined toward an ideal it will never reach. You're preventing it from serving its purpose because you can't accept that it's good enough. That's not dedication to excellence. That's fear disguised as perfectionism. This truth landed hard. Kaori realized she had been afraid to finish the sculpture, afraid to have it judged, afraid it wouldn't live up to her reputation. As long as it remained unfinished in her studio, it remained perfect in potential. Once completed and installed, it would be real, subject to criticism, limited by its actual qualities rather than protected by its imagined ones. "I've been hiding," Kaori admitted, calling it refinement when actually it was avoidance. With Etsuko's help, Kaori looked at the sculpture one more time and made a decision. She declared it complete as it was, not perfect, but real. She stopped working on it and arranged for its installation. When the sculpture was finally revealed in the city square, public response was mixed. Some people loved it. Others thought it was good, but not as exceptional as they'd expected from a decade of work. Critics noted both its strengths and its weaknesses. It was not a perfect masterpiece. It was a good sculpture with both beautiful passages and overworked areas, a real work rather than an ideal one. And Kaori found unexpected peace in this. The sculpture was done, installed, serving its purpose. It wasn't perfect, but it was complete. It had moved from endless potential to limited actuality, and this movement was itself a kind of perfection. Not the perfection of flawless execution, but the perfection of genuine completion. "I spent 10 years trying to make it perfect," Kaori told Isamu, standing together, looking at the installed sculpture. "I should have spent 3 years making it good, and then accepted that good was enough. The extra 7 years didn't make it better, they just delayed it." Isamu asked, "But how will you know with your next work? How will you know when to stop?" "I'll try to recognize when I'm working from love versus working from fear," Kaori said. "When I'm working from love, I'm responding to the actual piece, helping it become itself. When I'm working from fear, I'm trying to make it match an impossible ideal, trying to protect myself from criticism or judgment. The work from fear doesn't improve the piece. It just makes it tighter, more controlled, more dead. She touched a rough area of the sculpture that she had always intended to smooth further. See this? For years I planned to refine it, but now I see it gives texture, life, contrast. My perfectionism wanted to eliminate it, but actually it's one of the better parts. Sometimes what we think is incomplete is actually just real, and real includes roughness, includes elements that don't match the ideal. In her remaining years, Kaori created several more sculptures, and each one she completed more quickly than the last. She learned to recognize the moment when a work was done, not perfect, but complete. She learned that completion meant allowing the work to be what it actually was, rather than endlessly pushing it toward what it might ideally be. My final work taught me that sometimes completion means stopping, not finishing, she told students. Sometimes good enough is actually excellent, because continuing would diminish rather than improve. Sometimes the work is done when you can let it go, not when it's perfect. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider what in your life needs completion rather than more refinement. What projects, relationships, phases, identities have you been endlessly working on, unable to declare them finished because they don't match your ideal? What would it mean to accept them as complete, as good enough, as done? Completion doesn't require perfection. It requires recognition that continuing is no longer serving the work or serving you. It requires courage to let the real thing exist, rather than protecting the imagined perfect thing by keeping it perpetually incomplete. Rest now in completion. Let yourself be done with some things, not because they're perfect, but because they're finished. Let yourself stop refining and start living with what actually is, rather than what might ideally be. The sculptor's final work teaches that holding on too long destroys as surely as letting go too early. Learn to recognize the difference, and then, when it's time, let go. There was a monk named Ryusei who lived simply in a small temple at the edge of a town. He owned very little, just what was necessary for his practice and daily life. Among his few possessions was a pair of sturdy sandals he had received as a gift from his teacher when he first became a monk. They were well made, comfortable, and had served him faithfully for 7 years. One morning, Ryusei woke to discover his sandals were gone. Someone had stolen them during the night. He stood at the temple entrance, looking at the empty space where his shoes had been, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Anger at the theft, worry about how he would afford new sandals on no income, sadness at losing a gift from his beloved teacher, attachment to these particular shoes that had carried him so many miles. As he stood there, a neighbor passed by and noticed his bare feet. "Ryusei-san, where are your shoes?" "Someone took them during the night," Ryusei replied. "What? That's terrible. You should report it to the magistrate. We can't have thieves in this neighborhood." But Ryusei shook his head slowly. No need to involve the magistrate. "But you need shoes!" "And the thief needs to be punished." Ryusei was quiet for a moment, watching the morning light spread across the ground. Then he said something that puzzled the neighbor. "I hope they fit him well." The night was cold. Perhaps his need for shoes was greater than mine. The neighbor went away confused, but Ryusei meant what he said. As he sat with his initial reactions of anger and loss, he began to examine them more carefully. Why was he so upset? Because someone had taken something that belonged to him. But had it really belonged to him? He hadn't made the sandals himself. They had been given to him by his teacher, who had received them from someone else, who had purchased them from a craftsman who made them from materials that came from plants and animals, which came from the earth. At what point in this chain had the sandals become his? He had been using them, yes, they had been in his possession. But possession is temporary, always. Whether stolen, worn out, or outlived by his own death, those sandals were never going to be his permanently. They were just passing through his life for a time, and now they had passed on to someone else. This understanding brought a strange peace. Instead of focusing on what he had lost, Ryusei found himself thinking about the person who had taken the shoes. What desperation drives someone to steal shoes from a poor monk? What circumstances had brought them to this temple in the middle of the night, in need of footwear? Ryusei spent the day walking barefoot, which he hadn't done since childhood. He noticed things he never noticed while wearing shoes. The texture of different surfaces beneath his feet. The temperature of stones that had been in sun versus shade. The careful attention required to avoid sharp objects. The humility of going barefoot while others wore shoes. That evening, another monk from a neighboring temple visited. Hearing about the stolen sandals, he immediately offered Ryusei a spare pair he had. Ryusei accepted gratefully, but he noticed something. If he had spent the whole day angry about the theft, bitter about his loss, he would have missed the insights that came from walking barefoot. He would have missed the kindness of this monk's offering. He would have poisoned his whole day with resentment over something that was already gone and couldn't be changed. Instead, by letting go of attachment to the stolen shoes, by wishing well for the thief, by being present to what actually was rather than resenting what was no longer, he had passed the day in relative peace. A student who heard this story asked Ryusei, "But master, didn't you feel angry? Isn't anger at injustice natural?" "Of course I felt angry," Ryusei replied. For about 10 minutes, anger arose, just as it arises for anyone when something is taken from them. But then I had a choice. I could feed that anger, nurture it, build stories around it, carry it with me all day, letting it poison my mind and disturb my peace. Or I could acknowledge it, let it pass, and choose a different relationship with what had happened. "But the thief should be punished," the student insisted. "What he did was wrong. Perhaps he will be punished by his own conscience," Ryusei said. "Perhaps he is punished already by whatever circumstances drove him to steal from a poor monk. But whether he is punished or not is not my concern. My concern is whether I will punish myself by holding resentment or free myself by letting go." He looked at his new sandals, the gift from his fellow monk. "These shoes came to me because those shoes left me. If I had been so attached to the old shoes that I refused to accept new ones, I would still be barefoot." Life is constantly taking things from us and giving things to us. We suffer when we cling too tightly to what's being taken, and when we refuse to receive what's being offered. The student was quiet, thinking about this teaching. Finally, he asked, "So you're saying we shouldn't care about our possessions?" we should just let people take whatever they want. I'm saying we should hold our possessions lightly, Ryusei replied. Use them while we have them, appreciate them, but know that we never truly own anything. Everything we think we possess is just temporarily in our care. When it leaves us, whether through loss or theft or natural decay, we can let it go without adding the suffering of clinging to the simple fact of its absence. He smiled, remembering the cold night when his shoes were taken. That thief taught me something valuable. He showed me how attached I was to those sandals, how much of my sense of security was tied to possessions. He gave me an opportunity to practice letting go. In a way, though it wasn't his intention, he gave me a gift even as he took something from me. Years later, Ryusei would tell people, the shoes I lost mattered less than what I learned by losing them. The thief took my sandals, but gave me a teaching about non-attachment. Most of what we think we own, we don't. Most of what we think we need, we don't. And most of what we think would destroy us to lose, we can actually live without quite peacefully. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider what you're holding too tightly. What possessions, what relationships, what ideas, what version of yourself are you clinging to, fearing their loss? What if you held these things the way Ryusei learned to hold his sandals? With appreciation while they're present, with acceptance when they leave. Nothing you possess is truly yours to keep. Everything is temporary, passing through your life for a time. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy these things or care for them. It means you don't have to suffer when they inevitably pass on. Rest now in empty hands, knowing that holding loosely allows life to flow through your grasp. What needs to stay will stay. What needs to go will go. And you can be at peace either way, not because you don't care, but because you understand that ownership was always an illusion and loss was always inevitable. Let go tonight of everything you've been trying so hard to hold onto, and notice how light your hands feel when they're finally open. With each breath, we continue our journey through the wisdom of Zen, where the smallest stone may hold the greatest truth. Here starts the next story. In a coastal city, there lived a renowned mapmaker named Genji, who had charted more territory than any cartographer of his generation. His maps were detailed, accurate, and highly sought after by merchants, explorers, and military leaders. Every island, every coastline, every mountain range he documented was rendered with precision. But Genji had a practice that other mapmakers mocked. Whenever his knowledge ended, whenever he reached the limits of what had been explored and documented, he would leave the map blank. Large white spaces appeared on his charts, marked only with the words "unknown territory," or sometimes just left empty. Other mapmakers found this approach unprofessional. They would fill in the blank spaces with speculation, with reports from unreliable sources, with educated guesses. A map should be complete, they would argue. Blank spaces make it look unfinished. Blank spaces are honest, Genji would reply. They tell the truth, that we don't know what's there. Filling them with guesses tells a lie, that we do know. But the criticism stung, especially when clients would choose other mapmakers' complete maps over Genji's honest but incomplete ones. People wanted certainty, even false certainty. They wanted maps that told them what lay everywhere, even if those maps were partly fiction. One season, a wealthy merchant named Ichiro commissioned Genji to create a map for a trading expedition to distant islands. When Genji delivered the map, Ichiro was dismayed by the large blank areas. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Ichiro complained. "I need to know what's in these blank spaces. I need to plan my route." "What's in those spaces is unknown," Genji replied. "No reliable expedition has charted them. I can't tell you what I don't know." "But other map makers have filled in these areas," Ichiro protested. "They show islands, harbors, channels." "Based on speculation," Genji said. "Based on second-hand rumors and wishful thinking. If you sail using those maps, you'll be navigating by fantasy. My blank spaces at least tell you where certainty ends." Ichiro hired a different map maker who provided a complete map with no blank spaces. The expedition set sail using this fully detailed chart, confident in their route. 3 months later, the expedition returned, having lost 2 ships. They had found islands where the map showed open ocean, encountered reefs where the map showed safe passage, and wasted weeks exploring channels that didn't exist. The complete map had been worse than useless. It had been dangerous. Ichiro returned to Genji, chastened. "Your blank spaces would have saved lives. If I had known we were entering unknown territory, I would have proceeded cautiously. Instead, I trusted a map that pretended to know, and that false certainty led to disaster." "Blank spaces scare people," Genji acknowledged. "They remind us how much we don't know, how limited our understanding is. But pretending we know more than we do is worse than admitting our ignorance. The blank space says, 'Be careful here. Proceed thoughtfully. Don't assume.' The falsely filled space says, 'It's safe to trust this,' which is a dangerous lie." Word spread about Ichiro's disaster and Genji's honest maps. More clients began to value the blank spaces, recognizing them as marks of integrity rather than incompleteness. They learned to read Genji's maps differently. The detailed areas showed where knowledge was reliable. The blank areas showed where caution was needed. A young apprentice named Lin came to study with Genji. She had been trained by other map makers who filled in all spaces, and she struggled with Genji's insistence on leaving blanks. "But we can make educated guesses," Lin argued. "We know the general geography of the region. We can estimate where islands are likely to be." "And we'd be wrong half the time," Genji replied. "An educated guess isn't knowledge. It's speculation with a fancy name. If you mark speculation as if it's fact, you're lying to whoever uses your map." He spread out several maps on his table, his own with its blank spaces, and competitors' maps of the same regions with every space filled. These complete maps look more professional, more finished. But which is more honest? Which better serves someone trusting their life to the information? Lin began to understand, but still she resisted. People don't want to be told we don't know. They want answers, even imperfect ones. Then they want comforting lies rather than uncomfortable truths, Genji said. And it's not our job to provide comforting lies. Our job is to chart what's known and clearly mark what's not. The blank space is information. It tells you something important. Here be dragons, or at least here be unknowns. Proceed carefully. Over time, Lynn learned to value the blank spaces. She discovered that leaving areas blank required as much skill as filling them in. You had to know exactly where certainty ended, had to resist the temptation to extend your knowledge beyond its actual limits, and had to be comfortable with admitting you didn't have all the answers. One day, an explorer returned from a region Genji had left blank on his maps. The explorer had detailed charts of what was actually there. Your blank space wasn't really blank, the explorer said, showing Genji islands and coastlines that had been unknown before. Now it's not blank, Genji agreed, carefully adding the new information to his map. But it was blank until you explored it. That's how honest maps work. They grow as knowledge grows, but they never pretend to knowledge we don't have. He looked at the transformed map. See how the blank space has been replaced with detail. That's how it should happen. First honest acknowledgement of ignorance, then actual exploration, then knowledge replacing the unknown. But some map makers skip the first step and go straight to filling in spaces with imagination, which prevents anyone from recognizing what actually needs to be explored. Years later, Genji's blank spaces became the very thing that made his maps valuable. Explorers would deliberately seek out the blank spaces on Genji's maps, knowing these marked genuinely unexplored territory rather than cartographic guesswork. Military leaders trusted Genji's maps precisely because they showed where trust should end. A historian interviewing Genji late in his life asked, "Don't the blank spaces bother you? Don't you wish you could fill in all the unknown areas before you die?" "No," Genji replied without hesitation. "The blank spaces are the most honest things on my maps. They say, 'I don't know,' which is often the truest thing a person can say. I could fill them with speculation and fantasy, making maps that look complete. But I'd rather make true maps." He gestured to his life's work, hundreds of maps, all marked with careful detail where knowledge existed and honest blankness where it didn't. These blank spaces are my legacy. They're me admitting the limits of my knowledge, refusing to pretend omniscience, valuing truth over completeness. Every map maker who fills in the unknown with guesses is choosing ego over integrity. I choose integrity. The historian looked at a particularly large blank space on one map. Will this ever be filled in? Perhaps, Genji said. Perhaps someone will explore that region and bring back reliable information, or perhaps it will remain blank forever. Either way, my map is honest right now, which is all any map can be. The map maker who fills in that space with speculation is making a map that's dishonest right now, in the hope that by accident he might be correct later. That's not map making. That's gambling. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider the blank spaces in your own understanding. Where are you filling in unknowns with speculation, pretending certainty you don't have, telling yourself and others you know things you actually don't? What would it mean to leave those spaces blank, to honestly mark them as unknown? The blank space isn't a failure. It's honesty. It's saying, "I don't know," instead of offering false certainty. It's admitting the limits of your understanding rather than pretending those limits don't exist. This feels vulnerable because we're taught that certainty is strength and uncertainty is weakness. But actually, false certainty is weakness disguised as strength, while honest uncertainty is strength willing to show itself. Rest now in your blank spaces. Let yourself not know what you don't know. Let yourself mark large areas of your life, your future, your understanding as unknown territory. This isn't an admission of failure, it's commitment to truth. The mapmaker with blank spaces serves better than the one with false completeness. So do you. Your honest "I don't know" is more valuable than anyone's false "I'm certain." Sleep in the blank spaces tonight where truth lives. The path of Zen unfolds like morning mist, soft and patient. In this next tale, we are invited to see, beyond appearance, into essence. Listen carefully to the next story. There was a water bearer in a mountain village who carried water from the stream to the town each day. She used a wooden pole across her shoulders with a large pot hanging from each end. One pot was perfect, without flaw, and always delivered a full portion of water at journey's end. The other pot had a crack running down one side, and by the time the water bearer reached town, it was only half full. This went on for 2 years. The perfect pot was proud of its accomplishment, delivering full measures each day, fulfilling the purpose for which it was made. The cracked pot was ashamed of its imperfection, distressed that it could only do half of what it was meant to do. Finally, the cracked pot spoke to the water bearer one morning by the stream. "I am ashamed of myself. I apologize to you." "Why?" asked the water bearer. "What are you ashamed of?" "For 2 years, I have been able to deliver only half my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak out all the way back to town. Because of my flaw, you have to do more work, and you don't get full value for your efforts." The water bearer smiled kindly. "As we return to town today, I want you to notice the flowers along the path." As they walked up the hill from the stream, the cracked pot did notice the beautiful wildflowers growing along one side of the path. This cheered it somewhat, but at the end of the trail it still felt bad because it had leaked out half its water again. The water bearer said to the pot, "Did you notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side? That's because I've always known about your crack, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day, while we've walked back, you've watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate my home and to sell at market. Without you being just the way you are, I would not have this beauty to grace my life." The cracked pot was silent, absorbing this revelation. What it had thought was its greatest weakness had been serving a purpose all along. The crack that made it imperfect for one purpose made it perfect for another purpose it never knew existed. A student who heard this story asked the local Zen teacher, "But wouldn't it have been better if the pot had no crack? Then the water bearer would have had twice as much water and could have watered the flowers separately." The teacher smiled. "You're thinking of efficiency. The story is teaching about purpose. The cracked pot thought its only purpose was to carry water to town. It judged itself a failure at this purpose, but it was also watering flowers, creating beauty, serving a function it never imagined. What appears to be failure at one purpose may be success at a different purpose we don't yet recognize." The teacher continued, "Most of us are like the cracked pot. We have flaws, weaknesses, places where we leak, ways we don't measure up to our idea of what we should be. we judge ourselves harshly for these cracks. But often, these very flaws are serving purposes we cannot see. The things we think make us inadequate may be making us exactly adequate for something we don't yet understand. A woman in the village heard this teaching and thought about her own life. She had always been too sensitive, too easily moved to tears, too affected by others' suffering. In a society that valued stoicism and emotional control, she felt defective. She tried to toughen up, to be stronger, to not leak emotions everywhere she went. But then she noticed something. The very sensitivity she judged as weakness made her extraordinarily good at caring for those who were ill or grieving. People who were suffering would seek her out because her emotional openness created a safe space for their own grief. Her tears gave others permission to cry. Her tender heart helped heal other tender hearts. She was a cracked pot, yes, leaking emotional responses all along the path. But in her wake, flowers of compassion and healing grew. What she had thought was her failure was actually serving a purpose she had never imagined. A man in the village had a different crack. He couldn't focus on one thing for long. His mind would jump from interest to interest, never specializing, never becoming an expert in anything. In a society that valued mastery and deep expertise, he felt scattered and inadequate. But then he recognized what his crack had created. Because he knew a little about many things, he could connect ideas across different fields. He could see patterns that specialists missed. He could translate between different domains of knowledge, creating bridges where others saw only walls. The very quality he had judged as inability to focus was actually ability to see relationships. His crack was watering flowers he had never noticed. The teacher who told the story of the cracked pot would say, "Before you try to fix yourself, before you work so hard to seal up all your cracks, pause. Ask yourself, what is this crack watering? Where are flowers growing because of my imperfections? What purposes might I be serving that I haven't recognized because I'm so busy judging myself as broken?" This doesn't mean we shouldn't work on genuine problems or grow beyond destructive patterns, but it means we should look carefully at what we think are flaws. Sometimes what appears to be a weakness is actually a strength in disguise. Sometimes what we're failing at in one area, we're succeeding at in another area we haven't valued or noticed. The perfect pot in the story delivered water reliably, but it created no beauty. It fulfilled its intended function, but nothing more. The cracked pot, by failing at perfect water delivery, succeeded at something the perfect pot could never do. It made flowers grow. Tonight, as you rest, you might think about your own cracks, the ways you leak, the places you feel inadequate or broken. Instead of judging these cracks harshly, you might ask, what flowers might these cracks be watering? What beauty might be growing along the path of my imperfection? You are not meant to be a perfect vessel that holds everything in. You are meant to be authentically yourself, cracks and all. And those cracks, those places where you leak, those ways you fail to be perfect, they might be creating more beauty in the world than you realize. Rest now in acceptance of your cracked nature. You don't need to be sealed up and perfect. You're serving purposes you don't even know about, watering flowers you can't see, creating beauty through the very imperfections you judge so harshly. You are enough, cracks and all. More than enough. You are exactly what the world needs you to be. In a village known throughout the region for its ceramics, there lived a potter named Fumiko, who had inherited her father's workshop and his reputation for perfection. Her father had been famous for creating bowls so symmetrical, so flawless, that wealthy merchants would travel for days to purchase them. Every curve was exact. Every glaze was even. Every piece was a testament to complete control over the materials and process. Fumiko had learned her father's techniques perfectly. She could throw a bowl on the wheel with such precision that it seemed made by compass and ruler rather than human hands. She could apply glazes so evenly that no variation of color disturbed the surface. Her work was impeccable, and her success reflected that. Orders came from nobles and temples. Her workshop prospered. But Fumiko herself was miserable. Each piece she created felt lifeless to her, though she couldn't explain why. They were beautiful, yes. Perfect, certainly. But holding one of her bowls felt like holding a cold stone. There was no warmth in them, no personality, no soul. They were technically masterful, but somehow empty. She tried to push these feelings away. After all, people praised her work constantly. They paid premium prices. They displayed her bowls in places of honor. Who was she to feel dissatisfied when she had achieved everything her father had taught her to achieve? One autumn, a traveling monk stopped at Fumiko's workshop. He was old, his robes worn but clean, his face weathered by years of walking mountain paths. He asked if he might trade a blessing for a simple bowl to carry his daily rice. Fumiko, who gave generously to monks, brought out one of her perfect bowls. "Please, take this, it's my gift." The monk held it, turning it slowly in his hands. His face was unreadable. "Is something wrong?" Fumiko asked. "It's very beautiful," the monk said carefully. "Very perfect." But where is the potter in this bowl? I see perfection, but I don't see you. Fumiko felt something crack open inside her chest. This stranger had spoken aloud the very thing she had been feeling, but couldn't name. "I don't understand," she said. Though she did. She absolutely did. The monk set down the perfect bowl and pulled from his bag an old tea bowl he carried. It was rough, clearly handmade, with an uneven rim and a glaze that had run in unexpected ways during firing. There was a spot where the potter's thumb had pressed into the soft clay, leaving a permanent impression. The bowl was crooked, sitting unevenly when placed on the table. "This bowl," the monk said, "was made by a potter who had nothing to prove. Look here." He pointed to the thumbprint. "I can see the exact moment when the clay was soft and the potter was human, and the two touched. This bowl tells me a story. It speaks of someone who was fully present while making it, not worried about perfection, just engaged with clay and water and fire." He lifted it to his lips, pretending to drink. "When I use this bowl, I'm touching that potter's humanity. The imperfection is not a flaw. It's a signature. It's proof that a real person, with real hands, in a real moment, made this thing." He looked at Fumiko's perfect bowl again. "Your bowl could have been made by a machine. It reveals nothing of you. It hides you behind perfect technique. It's beautiful, but it's also lonely." The monk thanked Fumiko for her generosity and continued on his way, taking her perfect bowl with him. but his words stayed in her workshop like smoke, impossible to ignore. That evening, Fumiko sat at her wheel with a fresh ball of clay. She began to throw a bowl, but this time, she did something different. When her hand slipped slightly, creating a small wobble in the rim, she didn't smooth it away, she left it. When a bit of glaze dripped unevenly during application, she let it drip. When her thumb pressed too hard in one spot, leaving an impression, she allowed it to remain. Every instinct she had, every lesson from her father, screamed at her to fix these flaws. But she resisted. She let the bowl be what it wanted to be, imperfect and honest and human. When it came out of the kiln, Fumiko held it with trembling hands. It was crooked. One side was slightly higher than the other. The glaze was uneven, darker in some places, lighter in others. There was a clear thumbprint in the clay and a small crack that had formed during firing but hadn't broken all the way through. By every standard she had been taught, this bowl was a failure. But as she held it, turning it slowly in the light, she felt something she had never felt holding her perfect bowls. She felt moved. This bowl had a presence. It spoke of the afternoon she had made it, the way the light had come through the window, the mood she had been in, the questions turning in her mind. It was unique in all the world. Every other bowl she had ever made could be reproduced, but this one, with its specific flaws and accidents and human touches, could never be made again. She set it on her shelf, not for sale, just to look at. The next day, a customer came to the workshop, a tea master from the capital who had purchased Fumiko's bowls for years. "Show me your new work," he said. Fumiko brought out her usual pieces, perfect and symmetrical. But the tea master's eyes drifted past them to the crooked bowl on the shelf. "That one," he said. "May I see that one?" "Oh, that's not for sale," Fumiko said quickly. "It's flawed." "I was just experimenting." "Please," the tea master insisted. Reluctantly, Fumiko brought down the crooked bowl. The tea master held it, and his face transformed. He turned it slowly, examining every imperfection with what looked like delight. "This," he said softly, "is the first piece of yours that has made me feel something. Your other bowls are impressive. They showcase your skill. But this bowl has wabi-sabi." Wabi-sabi? Fumiko had heard the term, but never fully understood it. "The beauty of imperfection," the tea master explained. "The aesthetic of the impermanent, the incomplete, the imperfect. In tea ceremony, we value this quality above all others. A perfect bowl is cold. It intimidates. It makes you afraid to use it, afraid to break it. But a bowl like this..." He cradled the crooked bowl gently. "This invites you to hold it, to use it, to accept its nature and your own nature as equally flawed and equally beautiful." He looked at Fumiko seriously. "I will pay you 10 times your usual price for this bowl, and I hope you will make more like it." Fumiko found herself saying no. She couldn't explain why, but she wasn't ready to sell that bowl. It had taught her something she was still learning. Over the following months, Fumiko began to experiment with allowing imperfection. Not sloppiness, she still worked with care and skill, but she stopped trying to control every variable. She let the clay speak. She let the fire decide some things. She let her own humanity show in the work. Some pieces came out more crooked than others. Some were more symmetrical. no two were alike. And all of them had something her perfect bowls had never had. They had soul. They had presence. They revealed the person who made them. Her old customers were confused at first. Some stopped coming, wanting only the perfection they had come to expect. But new customers arrived, people who understood wabi-sabi, who valued authenticity over perfection, who wanted to hold a bowl that felt alive rather than ideal. One day, years later, a young potter came to Fumiko's workshop seeking to apprentice. The young woman looked around at the various bowls and asked the question Fumiko had once silently asked herself. "Which of these is your best work?" Fumiko picked up a bowl that leaned noticeably to one side, its glaze running in unexpected rivulets, a clear fingerprint visible in the clay. "This one," she said, "not because it's most technically accomplished, but because it's most true. See this wobble? I made this bowl on a day when I was sad about something I can no longer remember. My hands were unsteady, and the clay recorded that unsteadiness. This isn't a flaw. It's a diary entry in clay. It's proof that I was alive, was feeling something, was human when I made it." She set the bowl down gently. "For years, I made perfect bowls that could have been made by anyone with sufficient skill. But these imperfect bowls? These could only have been made by me, on these specific days, in these specific moments. The crooked bowls are my truest work because they hide nothing. They reveal everything, my moods, my doubts, my humanity. And in doing so, they give others permission to accept their own imperfection too." The young potter picked up the crooked bowl, feeling its uneven weight, seeing her own reflection distorted in its irregular glaze. "So, you're saying," she began slowly, "that the goal isn't perfection?" "The goal is presence," Fumiko replied. "When you're trying to be perfect, you're not really there. You're thinking about what you should be doing, what the result should look like, whether you're succeeding or failing. But when you let go of perfection and just engage fully with the material, with the process, with the moment, that's when you make something real. That's when your work becomes art instead of just craft." She smiled, remembering her father's perfect bowls, understanding now why she had needed to move beyond them. Perfection is impressive, but imperfection is honest. And in the end, honesty is more beautiful than perfection could ever be. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider your own crooked bowls, the parts of yourself you've been trying to perfect, to fix, to hide. What if those imperfections aren't flaws to be corrected, but signatures to be accepted? What if the wobble in your voice, the unevenness of your journey, the visible marks of your struggles are not evidence of failure, but proof of authentic living? You are not a machine-made bowl, smooth and perfect and identical to 1,000 others. You are handmade, unique, bearing the clear imprint of everything you've experienced. Your imperfections tell your story. They make you irreplaceable. Rest now in your own crooked beauty. Let yourself be imperfect, incomplete, impermanent. Let yourself be human. This is not a flaw in your design. This is the design itself, and it's more beautiful than perfection could ever be. In the hush of understanding, Zen offers us another glimpse of what it means to recognize worth not by weight or shine, but by presence. Here starts the next story. In a province divided by a deep gorge, there lived a master bridge builder named Kazuo. He had constructed bridges across rivers, over valleys, spanning impossible distances. His bridges were renowned for their strength and elegance. People traveled safely across waters and heights that would otherwise have been impassable, all thanks to Kazuo's skill and courage. But Kazuo harbored a secret that no one suspected. He was terrified of heights. This fear had been with him since childhood, since the day he had climbed too high in a tree and fallen, breaking his arm. The memory of that fall, the stomach-dropping sensation of nothing beneath him, had never left. Yet somehow, he had become a bridge builder, perhaps because he wanted to conquer this fear, or perhaps because he wanted to create safe passage for others over the very thing that terrified him. For years, Kazuo managed his fear through careful strategy. He would design the bridges in his workshop, calculate every measurement, supervise construction from solid ground. His apprentices would do the high work, walking the beams, securing the cables, testing the spans. Kazuo would stay below, calling instructions, his feet planted firmly on earth. His bridges were masterpieces of engineering. Each one stood as testament to his brilliant mind. But Kazuo knew the truth. He had never once walked across one of his own bridges. He had never felt the sway of the structure he designed. He had never looked down from the height his calculations assured was safe. This secret gnawed at him. He felt like a fraud. How could he call himself a master bridge builder if he was too afraid to cross his own creations? One spring, the provincial governor commissioned Kazuo to build his most ambitious bridge yet. A span across the deepest part of the gorge, connecting two mountain villages that had been isolated from each other for generations. The bridge would need to be long, high, and strong enough to withstand the winds that howled through the gorge. Kazuo accepted the commission. He drew the plans, made the calculations, selected the materials. Construction began, and as always, his apprentices did the high work while Kazuo supervised from below. The bridge took 2 years to complete. When it was finished, it was magnificent. A graceful arc of wood and rope and stone spanning the gorge like a prayer made solid. People came from distant villages just to see it. The day before the official opening ceremony, Kazuo stood at one end of the bridge, looking across to the other side. The governor had requested that Kazuo himself cut the ceremonial ribbon at the center of the span to honor his achievement. This would require Kazuo to walk halfway across his own bridge, in front of hundreds of witnesses. Kazuo felt his heart hammering in his chest. He looked down into the gorge, a distance that made his vision swim. He couldn't do it. He simply couldn't. That night, Kazuo didn't sleep. He lay in his bed, shame and fear warring inside him. By morning, he had decided he would tell the governor he was ill. He would send an apprentice to cut the ribbon. He would find some way to avoid the truth. But before dawn, there was a knock at his door. It was Yuki, his senior apprentice, a young woman who had worked with him for 5 years. "Master," she said, "I know your secret." Kazuo's face went pale. "What secret?" "Your fear of heights. I've known for years. We all have." Kazuo sat down heavily. "Then you know I'm a fraud." "No," Yuki said firmly. "I know you're human, but I also know something else. May I show you?" She led Kazuo to the bridge in the pre-dawn darkness. They stood at its entrance, looking across the span that was barely visible in the dim light. "Master," Yuki said, "may I tell you what I've learned working with you? Every bridge begins as fear. Fear of the gap, fear of the height, fear of the distance. That's why bridges exist, to address fear. You think your fear disqualifies you from building bridges, but actually, your fear is what makes you the best bridge builder I've ever known." "How can that be?" Kazuo asked. "I'm too afraid to even walk across them." "Exactly," Yuki replied. "Someone without fear might build a careless bridge. They might miscalculate, might miss a danger because they don't feel in their bones how high the stakes are. But you check every measurement 3 times. You select materials with obsessive care. You design with such caution, such attention to every possible failure point. Because you understand fear. Your bridges are so safe precisely because you're so afraid." She stepped onto the bridge, her feet confident on the boards. "Come. Just 1 step." Kazuo took 1 step onto the bridge. His legs trembled. "The fear you're feeling," Yuki said. "Where is it? Is it in the bridge?" Kazuo looked down at the solid boards beneath his feet. "No, the bridge is fine." "Is it in the gorge? Is the gorge reaching up to hurt you?" "No." "So where is the fear?" Kazuo touched his chest. "It's in me. It's in my mind." "Yes," Yuki said gently. "The danger you fear exists only in your imagination. The bridge is real. The gorge is real. But the catastrophe you're imagining, the falling, the failing, the shame, that's not real. That's a story your mind is telling about what might happen, not what is happening." She took another step. "Come, 1 more step. Don't think about the whole bridge. Just this 1 step." Kazuo took another step, then another. He kept his eyes on Yuki, on the boards directly beneath him, not looking down into the gorge, not thinking about the distance to the other side. "The fear says you'll fall," Yuki continued, walking slowly backward, leading him forward. "But have you fallen? The fear says you can't do this, but are you doing it?" Step by step, they moved across the bridge. Kazuo's breathing was ragged, his hands shaking, but he didn't stop. He focused only on the present step, the present board, the present moment. "The obstacle," Yuki said, "was never the height. It was never the gorge. It was the story in your mind about what the height and the gorge meant. The bridge you needed to cross wasn't this one. It was the gap between your fear and your action." They reached the center of the bridge. The eastern sky was beginning to lighten. Yuki stopped. "This is where you'll stand today," she said. "Where you'll cut the ribbon. Where you'll acknowledge your achievement. Can you do it?" Kazuo looked around, truly seeing for the first time where he stood. He was at the center of his own creation, high above the gorge, and he was not falling. The bridge held him. The structure he had designed was keeping him safe, just as he had calculated it would. "I built this," he said, wonder in his voice. "I built something strong enough to hold me, even though I was afraid." "You built more than a bridge," Yuki replied. "You built proof that fear doesn't have to stop creation. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but action in the presence of fear. Every bridge you've ever built was an act of courage, Master." You just couldn't see it because you were looking at your fear instead of your actions. They walked back across the bridge together as the sun rose. This time, Kazuo looked down into the gorge, really looked. It was deep, yes. The height was real, yes. But the bridge was also real. His knowledge was real. His years of careful calculation were real. The fear was just one truth among many, not the only truth. That afternoon, when the ceremony began, Kazuo walked across his bridge in front of hundreds of people. His hands still shook slightly. His heart still beat fast. The fear didn't disappear, but he walked anyway. And when he reached the center and cut the ceremonial ribbon, he felt something he had never felt before. Not the absence of fear, but freedom in spite of it. In the years that followed, Kazuo still felt fear when he crossed bridges, even his own. But he crossed them anyway. He learned that courage wasn't about being unafraid. It was about recognizing fear as a feeling, not a fact, as a story the mind tells, not a truth that must be obeyed. He would tell his students, the obstacles that stop us are rarely as solid as they seem. Most of them are built not of stone and distance, but of belief and imagination. We think we can't, and so we don't try. We imagine failure so vividly that we mistake the imagination for reality. But if you take one step, then another, focusing only on what's real in this moment, rather than what's imagined about the future, you often find that the obstacle dissolves. It was never as solid as you believed. Tonight, as you rest, you might consider the bridges you haven't crossed because of fear. What obstacles exist primarily in your imagination? What catastrophes are you so certain will happen that you never test whether they're true? What would one step look like? Just one step, not the whole journey, just the present moment's possible action. Your mind will tell you stories about falling, failing, being hurt or humiliated. These stories feel so real that you mistake them for prophecy, but they're just stories. The present moment is offering you solid boards beneath your feet, a structure that can hold you, a possibility you've been afraid to test. The bridge is stronger than your fear of it, and you are stronger than the stories your mind tells about what you cannot do. Rest now in this truth. Let your fears be what they are, feelings, not facts. And know that tomorrow, if you choose, you can take one step onto a bridge you've been afraid to cross. Just one step. That's all courage ever requires. As the lantern of awareness glows a little brighter, we come to a tale about seeing with more than the eyes. Let the stillness guide you now, and listen carefully to the next story.